Folks, what's happening? Dara here, the Happy Coach. Welcome to another episode of the Happy Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Kerry Flaherty. And I met Kerry just on Saturday gone. She was doing a running workshop with David Roach, and I was so impressed by her professionalism and how she conducted herself. And Kerry is an Olympic Irish runner, and she competes primarily in 3,000 meters steeplechase, but she runs 70 miles a week as well, which I was shocked when she said that to me. And Kerry's so professional. Like, one of the main things I took away from was her professionalism and how she just, her routine, her schedule, and her mindset around everything. And Kerry's competing in the 2015 World Championships and is the 2016 Rio Olympic Games. And she's also a PE teacher and has alpaca farmers, so I was made aware of just recently enough. And it's her birthday today, so happy birthday, Kerry, and thanks so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Yeah, so I suppose, Kerry, obviously you're an Olympic athlete. You're at the Olympic Games in Rio. So, like, my first question is, what's it like being at the Olympics as an athlete? Or, like, you know, the process, like the atmosphere, everything, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, you know, the process and getting to there, you know, that's the pinnacle of any, you know, sports person's career. The ultimate is to reach the Olympic Games. So, you know, being there was absolutely amazing. From going in and living in a village with all over other sports people from all over the world, you know, that's something that was really, really strange, because the village is like, I suppose it is like a small village anywhere with sort of skyscrapers that you actually go and you live in them, you know, while you're there. So really, you don't want to be in the village too early. So maybe just a week before competition, we were brought from our holding camp into the village. We shared one of the blocks with New Zealand. So it's amazing actually being there, and you really sort of have to pinch yourself sometimes that you're sitting there, you know, with a lot of famous athletes, you know, the big names, everybody, you know, eating together, being in the gym together and so on. It's a bit of a crazy world, you know, once you go into that Olympic village, and then you sort of have to keep your head right until your own competition, and then it's about supporting other people while you're there as well. But yeah, it's strange, you know, the village was that big that you could hop on a little bus and get taken around to the different venues, you know, the food hall, the gym, and so on. And, you know, it's that big that they even have their own McDonald's in the middle.
Jesus.
But the queues were obviously, we didn't go to the McDonald's, you know, until, you know, competition had finished. You know, we were in the McDonald's for a treat after that. But even at that, you know, the queues were horrendous. And by the time we queued, we were too hungry, so we just went to the normal canteen. So yeah, it's you have your own wee apartment blocks, you know, with your own team, and that's nice. And they try and, you know, room the sports people together, you know, the athletics people were roomed together and so on. But you know, it really is, it was a great atmosphere. And then Olympic Stadium was just something else, you know, when you go, and it was sort of like the long walk from the warm-up area to the call room area, and then that long walk underneath the stadium was, I guess, really, really nerve-wracking. Until then you were brought out into the main stadium, you know, with thousands of people looking down on you. It was like, I suppose the only way to explain it is like, you know, I suppose, you know, maybe a musician coming out into a concert, and all those people, you know, there to cheer you on and listen to you and so on, you know, all the people there watching you. It really is amazing. And, you know, I did get a taster for it going to the Commonwealth Games in 2014. You know, the stadium was full in Glasgow. And then when it came to the World Championships in Beijing in 2015, you know, that was the next stepping stone to really getting yourself prepared for those big, massive crowds, and you know, the whole atmosphere as well.
Yeah. And, you know, so like when I met you on Saturday, I was like, you had a bit a glow, I suppose, you know, like your professionalism is supposed about you. You can just tell by body language and just how you conduct yourself. You know, when you were seeing like the high level athletes at the Rio Games, like, did you notice something like that from, like, you know, you can just tell, like, yeah, they're good at what they do in a sense?
Yeah, I guess everybody's that way, and actually, going to Rio and those bigger competitions where you have other sports people there and
Mm.
not just athletics, so the World Championships for me was athletics, Europeans was athletics. So when it came to the Olympics, there was so many other sports people. So it was really
Yeah.
nice actually being there and, being there and learning about the other sports, learning about the especially our rowers, it was fantastic watching them in our building, and when they won their medal, it was it was just unbelievable. But it's just interesting to see all the different sports people and how other sports prepare for their event and so on. So, I think, everybody, it's sort of the pinnacle of their career. Everybody has
Mm.
invested so much time and effort into their sport. So, everybody has a professionalism about it. They look after themselves. Everybody's, eating well, sleeping well, and so on. And the partying happens afterwards. So, yeah, but everybody, is sort of all in the same frame of mind. But what I find, with the Irish team, the support was fantastic. Like the O'Donovan brothers, I don't think had ever been to watch athletics before. So when their competition was over, they were supporting us within our events. So
Oh, lovely.
they were coming to the stadium, and I don't think the boys had ever, been in that type of athletic atmosphere before. I think they'd maybe watched it on the television and so on. But I think the boys were in awe of being in the stadium and watching the track events. And then having the chat with them and how they trained and how we trained and so on. And I guess the Olympics is sort of, you get to meet people from all over the world, from all different sports that you may have never have met in your life. And you get a real understanding about how people train and how people live. But I guess it's always the same. Athletics has been my job, and most of these sports people are professional sports people in a way. Now athletics is an amateur sport, so we don't get paid for what we do, but it's just great to get an eye opener of all the different sports and how they prepare and so on.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And like, with a big part of what I do in my business, or sorry, with one of my business, the Happy Program, basically, it's kind of mindset for young men. And when you touched on your injury on Saturday, I was kind of touching on with your self-talk. So when you got injured and you couldn't train, when you hurt your foot and you couldn't train for a few months,
Mm-hmm.
what was your kind of like your thought patterns like? Did you have any like with your mental health somewhat deteriorating, like you feel negative thoughts coming in, or like how were you dealing with everything, I suppose?
Yeah. So when I broke my foot back in September, I was in a race in Spain, and first lap of the race, and I'm going to pause you there 1 wee second. One of my dogs is crying and scratching and whining at the door. Yeah. So in September, I broke my foot. I was pushed in the back when I was going over hurdling one of the barriers at the very start of the race, and I landed on my lead leg foot. I felt a horrendous pain, and I did let a scream out, but I didn't fall over, I didn't fall down, so my foot just popped back up. And I guess in my own head, with the whole adrenaline rush, I didn't know whether it was a sprain or what it was. So like most runners, when they maybe sprain an ankle or something, they run on. So I actually ran on. I ran on for 3.5 laps with a broken foot. And so all in all, I think I maybe went over about 14 barriers and three water jumps at that, and then really realized that the pain was there, and it wasn't shaken off, and that I could feel that my mechanics weren't right. I wasn't fluid in my running, and so I stepped off the track, and I think that's the one and only time I have stepped off the track. And I'm sorry, this one's crying.
You're okay.
I've just put her under a blanket. Hopefully that's okay. So I stepped off the track, and that was the first time ever I had, I think in my whole career, had not finished a race. Things have gone wrong in races before, and I've run on. You know, I had an accident in a steeplechase race before as well, where the water jump barrier wasn't stable, and I came down and hit my leg on that when the barrier wobbled, and I ran on and finished that race. That was just before I was trying to qualify for the Commonwealth Games. So it was the first time I'd stepped off the track, and then, you know, the first thing in my head was, this feels like it's broken. You know, it was like no pain I'd ever experienced before, and as soon as I stopped, I couldn't walk. I really didn't know what to do, you know, because you know, I don't speak much Spanish or any Spanish really at that.
Yeah.
So I had a friend from GB up in the crowd, Amy Pratt, and she usually does steeplechase, but she ran 1500 that night. I asked her to come down. She came down and helped me hobble off the track. So take her to hospital, found out it was broken. Got home the next day on a plane, and really had to start the process there of, okay, what do I do? What type of a break is it? And will it heal on its own? Will it not? But I found out from seeing my consultant, Alistair Wilson, that it was a Jones fracture and I needed a screw put in there to heal the break. So I guess, you know, I knew at that stage, that was September, so I knew, you know, obviously the rest of the season was over, but then it was having the discussion with him whether I could get ready for Tokyo 2020. He embedded the screw into my bone so that I would have a chance of making the 2020 Olympics, and that he wouldn't have to take that screw out. So it was sort of, you know, full steam ahead with the rehab. And as soon as I was allowed to, you know, be in the pool, be on a cross trainer, spin bike, Alter G, anti-gravity machine, I was doing all that. You know, I was getting all the cross training done. I was getting the gym work done. First off, you know, obviously, I wasn't allowed to do a lot of stuff until the wound had healed and things. So, you know, even after, I think it was maybe like 3 or 4 days or so, you know, when I was back in my own house, because my mummy had taken me in to look after me after the operation. So, you know, back in my own house, and I have a little mini gym here at home, and, you know, I was just doing, you know, all the body weight stuff. So I was basically just, you know, sitting in a chair and, you know, a few weights and so on, and then I progressed on to the rowing machine, where I was on a rowing machine, and I got a skateboard off eBay. So the injured foot was on a skateboard rolling back and forth, you know, while the other leg worked on the rowing machine. So I was really building things up, and by January I was good, and I was away warm weather training in Spain. And, you know, things were really on track. The only thing that we did was we didn't gradually bring the running in like I usually would with an injury. We sort of went full steam ahead with, I need to be fit, I need to get fit. So, you know, race fit quickly, because we knew, you know, I would be racing by June. So we would session every other day. And the other days I would cross train. So I would be in the pool, I would be on a bike, on a cross trainer, and so on. So we would session. And so things came back well, and things came back fast, and I was in really, really good shape. The foot didn't like the slower running, so when I started to do the faster running, the tempo work, the fartlek work, you know, the foot was all good with that. The heart and lungs, you know, all came back healthy very, very fast. But when I was trying to get the miles in for the slower runs, then, you know, the foot sort of wasn't really happy. So I really had to go back to the surgeon and say, look, we've tried to do this, we've tried to do that. We then tried to bring the hurdles in, and the foot just wasn't really happy. And the surgeon said it may be that the screw is making the foot a little bit too rigid. So we decided in February that we'd get the screw out of the foot, but that meant that Tokyo 2020 would probably come too soon. Really trying to get back, as soon as the screw was coming out, then the bone would be hollow, and I would have to go through a whole healing process again, and be very, very careful, because the break had healed, but then you would be left with a hollow bone, and then it would have to fill in. You know, so, you know, the surgeon said to me, like, you know, it's very unlikely that I will have you jumping. You know, he says, you can be back running in 5 weeks, 5-6 weeks, you can be back running. But actually, you know, jumping and putting impact on that foot, you know, I don't want that for, you know, a little while after that. So at that stage, I think, you know, after I went for that operation, I sort of really hit a low point, that, you know, the Olympics aren't happening. You know, what am I doing with myself? You know, I'm sort of getting back from injury here. We've been here before, but, you know, at the age of 38, like, maybe that's the career. Maybe, you know, the pinnacle was, you know, the World Championships. You know, I've made a Commonwealth Games, I've made the Olympics, and maybe that's it. But then the other side of my head was saying, well, look, you're not done with this yet. You know, you have, you know, this is an accident that's happened. It hasn't been your fault. You haven't broken a bone because of undereating. You haven't made a mistake, and you haven't overtrained. This has happened, and this is just one of those freak accidents. And you know, don't let running be done with you until you're done with the running. So at that stage, I sort of knew I really needed to get a sports psychologist involved then, because I was sort of really hitting low points where I was, you know, back in the gym and doing some cross training so I could get myself ready, and the cardio system would be fit for when the running could come in. But part of me was saying, why am I doing this? I'm not going to make the Olympics, you know, this summer. So, you know, and really, will I push it on another 4 years after that? Well, why am I doing this to myself? You know, why am I beating myself up about it? You know, why am I really busting a gut? And you know, going and getting my sports psychologist, Gary Locke involved. Gary Longwell. Gary Locke's Paul Radcliffe's husband. I got Gary Longwell involved in the Sports Institute in Northern Ireland, and Gary was a great help. The fact was that we didn't know, you know, before I went for the operation to get the screw out, whether that would make a difference. That was a gamble, whether that was going to make a difference or not. The foot, we could have taken it out and the foot might have felt the same. Running wasn't really comfortable. It didn't feel fluid, you know, when I had the screw in. So I just thought, right, let's go for it, really. But then, you know, there was all that, you know, sitting in the house and thinking, you know, what am I doing? Do I want to do this to myself time and time again? And you know, having the sports psychologist in place, you know, was a really good thing, because he sort of came from the outside of my training bubble, and could put things in place for me that sort of really helped me sort of outline what I was going to do, you know. So there was different scenarios, you know. Scenario A was that, you know, okay, right, you're not going to run again competitively, so what does Kerry do next, you know? Where's Kerry's career right now? You know, I teach part-time and so on, but he's like, right, do you really want to do that, or do you go on to the next thing? So I guess Gary had the plan for the exit from sport as such, and then he also had the scenario that, okay, you know, you get back running here, but you're not able to do the competitive side anymore, that, you know, that the foot's still sore, but you can get away with just being healthy every day and exercising. Or then, you know, the next scenario was that, you know, I get back, and what would the next target be? You know, obviously Tokyo 2020 was coming too soon, so what would the next target be for me? And you know, I picked Eurocross, which is hopefully in Dublin this December. So, you know, that was really good when, you know, he could outline for me, you know, what I suppose, you know, it's really hard. You just see the doom and gloom all the time, you know, when something like this happens to you. But for somebody to sit there and pinpoint, right, you know, A, B, C, here's your scenarios, and no matter what happens, you know, you can, you know, still go down the line of a career, you can still be happy, and so on. But he made sure I also had other things in place while, you know, the rehab and all was going on. You know, I have animals at home, so I've started farming alpacas, and I now have 6. I've got a couple of goats. I've got my dogs, and I must say, you know, during, you know, lockdown, and during, because I was in lockdown and rehabbing, and all of a sudden not being able to see the physio after having second surgery. So like having my dogs here to go through that walk, but you know, the return to running again, sort of the walk, jog, return to running, and sort of having somebody there rather than being on your own as such.
Yeah.
You know, I suppose, you know, some people can put their music on and things. Other people might have somebody to go out with them. But you know, it was lockdown. You weren't really supposed to be with anybody. So it was great for me that I actually had my animals there. I had something to distract me, but when I went to do my walk, jog, and return to running, I had the dogs there as well. So I was just putting, you know, different, you know, coping strategies in place for everything. And like, don't get me wrong, it wasn't all, you know, happy clappy after that.
Yeah.
I did have days where I would sit there and I would get my exercise done, and then I'd just have my lunch, and I'd just sit here where I'm sitting now, and I'd just watch the animals out the window. But in the back of my head, I knew I had things to do. You know, I could be, you know, writing my blogs. I'd lots of things to do, but I just got to a point where I didn't want to do them. And then it was getting Gary Longwell in place again, that, you know, I was like, right, you know, what's happening to me now? You know, I've got things in place. I've got the return to run in place, but I do my training and I come home and I sit here. And he's like, well, what would you usually be doing? And, you know, usually I'd be traveling to the physio or traveling to the gym or so on. And you'd have your coffee chats with your friends. So he's like, right, you know, get your Zoom in place with your coffee chats with your friends and do this and this. And he says, the best thing for you is I want you to get up in the morning, have your breakfast and write a list. And, you know, it seems really, really simple, but basically, you know, pen to paper, I find if I put a lot of stuff on my phone or iPad or computer,
forget about kind of like,
it gets lost. But I find, you know, for Gary bringing me back to old school, getting a bit of paper and writing, basically just writing a list of, and he says, just simple things. So like one of them was gardening, one of them was, you know, getting out and weeding the garden. You know, another one was trying to train the alpacas on their leads. Another one was maybe write a blog. So it was sort of like a realistic list for the day. Like you wouldn't put 20 things down. There may have been only 5 things on there. And throughout the day, then I was to tick everything off the list. And if I didn't get something done, I had to write down why. And then I'd catch up with Gary on the phone and we'd discuss. And there were days I didn't get it done because I was so busy. And there were days that I didn't get it done because I sort of slumped into that. Right, I've done my run, I've had my lunch, and now I'm sitting here and I don't really want to do anything else now. Just like motivation for a long time was at a low.
Yeah.
And I guess for me it was hard, you know, because, you know, I interact with an awful lot of people. I'm a very sociable animal, so I guess it was hard in a way, sort of being totally cut off then from, you know, socializing even with your you know, your physio, you know, S&C coach, you know, just small things like that. Whereas I'd be meeting maybe, you know, at least 5 people a day doing different things with the running. So I guess, you know, that was hard in a way. My coach and partner, Richard, who lives with me, he was here in the house, but obviously he was working from home. So he was doing his full-time job from home, whereas everything had sort of just stopped for me in a way. Schools had closed, so I wasn't teaching. But in a way that was the whole focus was on the rehab and getting back running, which was good. And then we found out that, you know, Tokyo was postponed till next year, which, you know, was a good thing for me. Obviously there's lots of athletes out there that, you know, it's devastating for them because they had got their Olympic qualifier, it was maybe their first Olympics. But for me, it was a slight blessing in disguise that, you know, I've had this opportunity to be given this extra year.
Yeah.
So I guess that was a big motivation for me, which was really, really good. And in a way, then I knew I could just take this really, really gradually and, you know, get back healthy and strong. And really, because there was no races then, and I knew there was going to be no races happening, you know, I could strip everything back. David Roach really, really helped me, you know, put, you know, sort of the exercises in place, you know, because I didn't have any hands-on physio. So, you know, things were tightening up. You know, I was getting back to running, but then all those extra niggles come in, because I hadn't run really properly, since September when the break had happened. So the Zoom calls were great with David, but he can, have a chat to me, see where the areas were that were tight, and he was like, right, we're going to strip everything back, right? Here's the exercise plan. Let's go with this. Here's the activation before every run. Here's your core, here's bits of the gym. So that was really good that I could have a one-on-one, Zoom call with him, and we could put things in place. And, that really helped as well. But it was really, stripping everything back and getting the body strong again to eventually be able to build it up to 70 miles a week again and be strong enough,
Yeah. And on that as well, Kerry, then, how do you go about setting goals for yourself? Obviously you would have had Tokyo as a goal, but in terms of rehab or goals in general, would you have like professional goals in terms of your career? Would you have goals obviously in terms of your running, or what way do you kind of break down your goals or visualize them or work towards them?
Yeah, so breaking down the goals sort of this time round, because we sort of have, there's a few races that have basically been announced now that we can run. The track races though will not count for Olympic qualifier, so that's pretty hard this year. That the IAAF have come through to basically say that Olympic qualifying won't start again until the 1st of December. So any track races that do come up, so the Irish Championships that are billed for the 22nd, 23rd of August, any times that are run at that won't count towards the Olympics. So that's a bit, when it comes to that, it's like, motivate. It's hard to motivate yourself.
Yeah, of course, I'd imagine so.
But at the end of the day, you are itching. At this stage now, you're itching for a race. So really, what I was looking at, because Tokyo 2020 wasn't happening, and it was doubtful I was going to be able to make that anyway. I've really looked at, the end of the year and hopefully Eurocross happening and trying to get on that Irish team for the Eurocross this year. And really then working back from that. So working back, is there going to be maybe a couple of road races I can target in September? So, sort of in our plan, we put down that, right, there will be some races, so I can do some races in September. And then come September, October, head out to altitude to prepare at altitude for the cross-country season, come back to Ireland for the cross-country season and so on. So it's really sort of looking at that end goal and then working back from that for this year to start off with, because we don't know, how things are going to go at the moment.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Yeah, so it was really working back from that and then piecing together then a training plan with Richard and at how I was then going to get myself fit again. So as I said, I started off with a walk jog. We started bringing then our tempo running back, and really we looked at it that I was building a winter base, because there wasn't going to be, we didn't know whether there was going to be any summer races. So it was really getting that winter base built up first. So it was really sort of bringing the mileage up, then bringing the tempo work in. And a great motivation for me was, we put down the times I was running. So we put down, I think it was back in March, April time there. I was running 7-minute miling for tempos, so my heart rate was up at tempo heart rate, and I was running 7-minute miling for tempos. Now they're just last night. I can compare last night's session to the same session I did in April, and I'm now 5:40 miling,
Wow,
so
big difference.
So we were able to start those sessions and then say, even a week later, look back and say, right, I've taken, say 15 seconds off per mile tempo running. And then, it came in chunks, which was really, really nice. But, Richard would then, send me over via email the whole breakdown. Okay, you did that session 21 days ago and look at the improvement. The heart rate's come down, the speed has got faster. So that's been great as a motivation, not, having my own training as motivation, and having sort of really getting fitter and really being able to look back on a session that, you know, will replicate maybe the same session every 20 something days, and have a look back at what I ran then and how the heart rates were, how fit I was, and then what I'm running now. And that's been really good for my goal setting along the way, and being able to, you know, look back and then be able to then plan ahead. Right now we bring the fartlek sessions in, and then close to the time that we know there's going to be a race, we start bringing some, you know, faster stuff in. We've been bringing hill sprints in for the running economy, and to bring that speed back into my running as well. I have been back on the track, but I've just been hurdling. So I've been working with my hurdles coach now, and that's preparation for my steeplechase, which I will see about racing, you know, after December. I think I'm just going to give myself that, you know, the whole year, and maybe not steeple this year. I'm thinking of running more 5,000s. So I think there's a couple of races coming up in August, which will be road races. I've always loved road races. So I'm going to schedule one at the start of August, over 5,000, 5K. So that's sort of like the next little goal now. And at the minute, you know, from running on my own, you know, back in, well, with the dogs, back in March, April to now, you know, being back training with my training group, you know, has been great motivation as well, trying to get myself, and some of the guys, you know, stepped down and slowed their runs down, you know, when I was getting back to you know, help me along the way as well, which was really good. But yeah, it's a really strange one this year, because it's really hard to goal set, because usually goal setting for an athlete would be, you know, marking a race. You know, you'd maybe run a few races in preparation for a bigger race, and that's how you would sort of set your goals and set your plan out. But for me, it's been stripping that back, and because I've come from where I've come now with that major injury, the goal set for me was making targets to try and run as fast as I used to run as such. And, you know, Richard has all my information going back years. So Richard's even, you know, gone back to see what I was running in 2015 and 2016 when I was in the shape of my life. And he's able to compare what I was running for those sessions back then compared to now. And we're bang on target, you know, if not, we're a tiny little bit faster. So that's been really, really good motivation. So it has.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah, obviously I have to prepare myself for steeplechase again, because that's my event. But to know endurance-wise, you know, the fitness is the best it's ever been. You know, is really great. And then just having to then get the head round translating that into racing again, when it happens. But fingers crossed, there's going to be a couple of races in the pipeline, and just to get back there and get the feel of it again. Because race fitness is totally different from just normal running fitness, and you know, you've obviously got to have a couple of rusty races first as well, just to blow the cobwebs too. Because I haven't raced since September now, since I broke the foot. So yeah, it's gonna be strange.
Well, that's perfect, Kerry. You know, I've one last question. I appreciate you coming on. So, you know, just in terms of you're kind of set to go and work backwards. So, say prior to your injury in the coronavirus, because it's kind of hard. Like for me, obviously, like I have my own business stuff for that, so it's obviously goal setting. But I think a lot of people are even kind of be confused how to set goals, because in case this happens or that happens. So, say before injury, how did you? So like you would have picked it and worked backwards. Would you have would you have a vision board of the actual goal itself? Would you write out your goals or spend time looking at them and reading them each day? Or how would you go about with your goal setting?
Yeah, so really goal setting for me has always sort of really worked around like a training plan. So we would map out the training plan and periodize that, you know, on a spreadsheet, and really have target races. And then, you know, in the lead up to those target races, it would be targeting the mileage I'm targeting for the week, sessions that I'd be targeting during the weeks and so on. And my coach Richard would have, you know, times to hit in mind. And really I suppose it's the big goal setting is the races, and the smaller goal setting is meeting targets within training. And then obviously trying to keep a strong head and realizing that, you know, you're not always going to feel good. You know, you're going to have bad days, and, you know, things get in the way as well. You know, you might have a bad night's sleep and so on. And, you know, things pop up in life all the time. So really for me, it was really like, you know, planning, training and racing, you know, to really sort of set targets and tick those off as I go. One thing with me though that I've got to be really careful about is when I start getting fitter, I start running faster. And that could be that can be like detrimental, you know, to my endurance physiology when I start running faster and start running in a different energy zone. So, you know, sometimes, you know, Richard would have to get the reins on me, you know, for certain track sessions and so on. So it's really, you know, I know now, you know, over the years we've made mistakes about running too fast in some sessions. So it's sticking to the plan as well. You know, everybody loves to go out and do a track session and run faster and better than what the coach has set a target for. But I've learned over the years that, you know, if you do that, it can be detrimental to the outcome that you really want race wise. So I guess, you know, goal setting, you know, it is good motivation if you do run faster, but you know, I know I've, you know, got a good head on me now, that I know that it could be the wrong thing at times. So it's really sort of being strict on myself as well as far as training goes. You know, runners, as they get fitter and do more, they want to do more miles and more miles and more miles. And it's really important, you know, to sort of be very careful. Like when I was getting back there, I was, you know, the target was to get back to 70 miles. And there was 1 week that I ran 68 and a half. And, you know, I was like, oh, damn, I'll go out this evening to get the extra 1.5 in. And Richard's like, no, you'll not. You don't need to. Don't need to. 68 and a half is as good as 70. You know, the extra 1 mile and a half is not going to do anything bar be a number in your head, you know. So it's really trying to be sensible in a way when you're goal setting as well. And you know, I guess that's something that's really hard for runners. You know, as the miles go, it's really hard to hold yourself back sometimes when you really are fit, but you could just easily you know, tip over that mileage, and, you know, a niggle comes on, it turns into an injury. So it's, you know, it's being really sensible about goal setting as well, and what motivates you too. But I guess, yeah, the main thing is, you know, targeting those races in build up to major competitions. And, you know, the main goal is always, you know, getting that vest for Ireland to run at the World Championships, Europeans, Olympics and so on.
That's perfect. Kerry, I won't keep any longer. I appreciate you coming on
the
podcast. Thank you so much. For the people listening or watching it, depending on what platform, please share it on your Instagram story and tag myself and Kerry in it. Kerry has given some valuable gold nuggets there. They're going to help a lot of people. So the more people that are aware of the podcast, aware that Kerry was on it, sharing some valuable time with us, you help a lot of people out. So I do appreciate that, folks. But yeah, Kerry, besides that, honestly, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks for having me.